All right, here we go, take two. So I just recorded a whole video for you guys and realized that I didn't push the record button. How I didn't do that, I have no idea. So I'm going to recap. Today I want to talk about when I lost my job at 55. To start off, to set things up, I've been an entrepreneur for most of my working career for the better part of 35 years. I have had a couple of working stints where I've worked for corporate companies. Early in my career, I worked for the Toronto Blue Jays where I learned about licensing. That gave me the opportunity to work with some manufacturers overseas, and I became an import marketer. What's an import marketer? Well, that's somebody who understands marketing, that you have to product, price, promotion, and distribution. You have to handle all four of those things once the product is landed. Importing is simple. You're importing a product from one country to the next. So an import marketer has a product they're selling, has to get it manufactured overseas, bring it into the country that you're going to be selling it into, and you build a repeat program. That's what an import marketing company does. The problem with that is the banks don't like financing orders for import marketing companies. So you've got to self-finance your business. Well, there are ups and downs with that model. And by the way, I'm playing fetch with my dog, Ralph. While we do this, we're walking in a big circle, and hopefully the road windscreen on my mic is doing its job and you're not getting all the wind. But anyway, so I was an import marketer going up and down with that business. In 2007, we ran into a huge problem with one of my buyers at one of my large big box stores. They literally sabotaged our business by doubling the price internally to their stores so they would not bring our product in. He was trying to get private labels out of his stores so that just the big brands, Nikes and the Adidas and the Reeboks of the world, would be the only products in his sporting goods section. He didn't tell me what he did, and he let me flounder for well over a year until I figured out what the problem was, and then we had a resolution, but it wasn't a good one. I'll just leave it at that. So what I learned was when you're self-employed, business goes up and down. Not everybody enjoys that roller coaster ride. And I wanted some stability. My wife, I think, had earned the right to have some stability in her life. And I decided, well, if I'm going to get a corporate job, then I'm going to do it under two terms. One, that I have a reasonably steady income. And the second term is that I need to be able to keep learning something new. Those are my two conditions. So I went out and I got a job working for a corporate learning company. They were an Indian-based company, and I worked for them for 5 years in corporate sales. What I got to learn was, I wanted to learn how adults naturally learn. That was really fascinating to me. It's like consumer behavior, right? Why do people buy what they buy? Why do people do what they do? I've always been fascinated in consumer behavior. So I love the metrics, I love the data. I love to dig in and try to understand why we do what we do. So the idea of working for a corporate learning company, a company that builds corporate training, allowed me to see what problems companies were facing and how we went about solving those problems. Now, that company went through a restructuring because they were predominantly Indian-based. 80% of their business, if not more, was in India. And in North America, their corporate learning division, things weren't good. And so, because of that, I was made redundant at 55. Now, after being self-employed for many years and then working for a company for 5 years, you kind of get used to that paycheck. At least my wife did. And it created a lot of anxiety when I got let go. And it wasn't personal. It was just a business decision. And most of the people who I worked with were also let go. So now, here I am I was working for a corporate company, and now I'm unemployed at 55. What do? The good news is that I had a mindset that allowed me over my career working for myself to be resilient and to be self-reliant. There were 3 big takeaways that I can tell you I took from that experience. Number 1, always be learning. You can learn from LinkedIn, you can learn from YouTube. If you subscribe to the pro account on LinkedIn, the Sales Navigator, Their learning database is free, so you can always be upgrading your skills. And you should be thinking about upgrading skills that are going to be transferable in your career. So that leads me to point number 2, which is be a better communicator. The thing about being a great communicator is that there's always room for improvement. Now, Carmen Gallo is a gentleman. I started reading his books about 10 years ago. It started with Talk Like Ted, then The Storyteller's Secret, and then 5 Stars. 3 awesome books that will help anybody become a better communicator. And the crux of what Carmen was trying to tell people was 2 things. One, people can only retain information for about 15 minutes. That's why TED Talk is typically 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, you lose your audience. In that 15 minutes, you have to have one idea that you're trying to communicate and 3 supporting facts. That's called message mapping. So if you're making a presentation, have one idea, 3 supporting facts, and it's all got to be stories that back up those facts. So, I want to be a better communicator. Here I am on YouTube, and I'm seeing creators talking about storytelling. Let me explain what storytelling is the way that I understand it. Some YouTubers who do shorts use a but-so method. You know, they'll say, I came to the park, I wanted to walk my dog, then I went home, and because I was cold. That's the story. That's not a very good story. They'll say, well, I went to the park, but it was cold, so I had to go find my sweatshirt and had to go find my gloves. Then we went to the park, but it was still really cold. So good thing I had my toque, but even my toque wasn't enough, so I went and got a hot chocolate after I was done walking. That warmed me up, and then we went home. That but-so method, so this happened, so this happened. It's okay, I guess, for a short, but what I would say to you is this: that's not storytelling. Storytelling in the classic sense is setup, conflict, resolution. That's called the hero's journey. Every Hollywood movie follows the same script. It starts off with the status quo. You're introduced to the hero and their world as it is. Then a problem happens. A challenge is confronted to the hero, and they have to go through a transformative journey. And at the end, hopefully, they solve the problem and everybody's happy again. That is the hero's journey. That is the setup, the conflict, the resolution, the 3-step process to better storytelling. So when I put out YouTube videos, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to tell a better story. Even in my shorts right now that I'm doing, that are the men's public service announcements, when the referee comes in the first 3 seconds, it's an attention grab. It's a repetitive branded thing that I can do that lets people know that's my short when they see it in their feed, every time they see the referee come in and blow his whistle. But it's telling you immediately the setup is, what's the problem? The setup is, what's the problem? And then I go into trying to resolve the problem in 30 seconds, and then a call to action. So I'm trying to figure that out, master it in 30 seconds, and it's really hard to do. In these longer videos, what I try to do right now is, in the setup, let you know that just because you may have gotten let go in your 50s from your job, that doesn't mean the world's over. And that brings me to point number 3, is you have to move from a fixed to a growth mindset. If you keep saying, I can't find time to learn because, or I can't get a better job because, or I can't because, that is somebody with a fixed mindset. You've got to get out of that mindset. You have to start saying to yourself, how can I do this? How can I do that? As soon as you start saying that, what you're doing is you're opening your brain up to new possibilities, new opportunities. Let me give you an example. I'll wrap this up with a story. When I was doing my second Ironman in Cozumel, Mexico, my first Ironman in Louisville, I did it in just under 14 hours. Immediately I decided I wanted to do better. So I went to Cozumel because at that race, I knew that historically, guys who posted 10.5 hours races stood a good chance of getting to Kona, Hawaii for the World Championships. I thought that was a reasonable goal to chase after. But I didn't have any more time in the day to train. I still had to work my job. How was I going to train in a way that was going to allow me to be faster. So I didn't say I can't be faster. I said, how can I be faster? And that led to better training. I realized that even if I spent hours and hours and hours trying to be faster in the pool, taking 10 minutes off my swim time from an hour 20 to an hour 10 would be humongous. But that's only 10 minutes worth of time during the race. I needed to make up 2.5 hours. Then I looked at my bike and said, well, if I got stronger, if I introduced some weight training, hill training, interval training to my bike training, I could take my bike from 8 hours to 6. That same training, if I incorporated it into my run, I could take my marathon time from 6 hours to 5. If I did that, that put me in the neighborhood of 10.5 hours. So what was awesome about that was I came to that race completely prepared to hit that time. I went out and I did my swim in a $1:20. I did my bike in just under 6 hours. I was flying and I'm thinking, man, I'm going to be an Ironman today. But then something happened. We had a rainstorm. And guess what happens when you're doing an Ironman and you're putting your body on a razor's edge for all the energy that it possibly has? I was doing my run. I was about 10 kilometers from the finish line. I am on track. I'm on fire. And this rainstorm came through. And the kids who were working the aid stations weren't smart enough to refill the Dixie cups they had all the pretzels in, which I was getting my sodium and my carbohydrates from during the run. They weren't smart enough to refill them. So I had to skip 2 aid stations and not take in any pretzels or salt. I was instead relying on the sugar and the sodium from the Coca-Cola that I was getting at the aid stations. Bad decision. When you're running on such a razor's edge, immediately after leaving that aid station, the second aid station, I went to lift up my right foot and my foot bent over and cramped and I dropped it to the ground immediately. Then I went to lift my foot again and my calf cramped. Almost went sideways, the muscle. Wow, what's going on? One more time I picked it up. Now my foot, my calf, now my hamstring's going sideways. And I'm like, what the hell is happening? And then I realized the first sign that your body is shutting down from sodium depletion is cramping. I had put myself in a position to post my time, but in doing so, I was on such a razor's edge that I was at risk of not finishing the race at any time if something went wrong. Now here's the good news. The good news is, in my training, I realized that I had to be better prepared for my race. So I carried on my race belt salt tablets, I carried Coca-Cola, and I carried water. That was only in case of emergencies. And that was an emergency. I took those salt tabs, I kept moving forward, metaphorically and physically, dragging my foot on the ground until after about 5 minutes I could finally pick it up without it cramping. Got back into a running rhythm after about 20 minutes. I slowed down a little bit, but I ended up posting a time of 11 hours and 27 minutes. Not the 10.5 that I had hoped for. But here's the thing, the last twist to the story. Even if I had posted 10.5 hours on that race, there were 3 guys at our hotel who I'm sure were ex-Olympic athletes. 3 German guys who were about my age, in my age category, who all posted a time of just over 9 hours. Now understand, the pros in the race were posting 8 hours. They were 1 hour off the pros' times. Guess what? Even if I'd hit my 10.5 hours, I wasn't going to Kona. I wasn't punching my clock. The lesson there is, even though you're prepared, you have to manage your expectations because you do not know what could possibly happen to you in your journey. So that's your career. Think of that as your career. You don't know what's around the corner. You don't know what new technology is going to replace you. You don't know what's AI is scaring the hell out of everybody right now. And I look at that as a positive thing because I'm trying to understand AI so that I can be more resourceful. So yeah, at the end of the day, the 3 big takeaways are, number 1, always be learning. Number 2, become a better communicator. Tell better stories. Have a thoughtful process for your storytelling. Don't just ramble on. Number 3, make sure you move from a fixed to a growth mindset. If you can do those things, you are going to be well on your way to being very, very sustainable and resilient in your career. Now, let's just have a look at Ralph over there. Where is he? Where is he? Oh, here he comes. He's coming. We've been doing this big walk around this circle for the last half hour. having a conversation, and he just keeps chasing this ball out into the middle of the field. I'll see if I can get it on video for you, because it's always fun to watch Ralph. Here we go, Ralph. Hey! This is what we do. This is our Saturday mornings, going for a walk in the circle and having a big run around. So, if you are like me, where you're in your 50s, or even in your 40s, and you're worried about potentially getting let go from a company, guess what? You cannot control whether or not your job is going to be stable, whether it's going to be there for you 5 years from now, 10 years from now. You can't control any of that. None of us can. What you can control is how prepared you are in the event that something bad happens. So always be learning skills that are super transferable, that allow you to be the most prepared person in the room. Have skills that you can move from one career to a next, like better storytelling. That's like being a better communicator is one of the best skills you could possibly ever learn in your life. And then, don't be that negative person in the room. Stop saying I can't because, and move that mindset to how can I? As soon as you do that, man, I'm telling you, your mind is going to open up to all kinds of new possibilities. So if you enjoyed this video, this is one of my walk and talk videos where I take Ralph for a walk and we talk. If you enjoy this kind of format, let me know in the comments. I've got lots of great stories that I can share. So just let me know what you want to hear more of. And maybe I've got another story that I can tell you that will relate to that specific subject. But if you haven't subscribed already, subscribe. This is a channel for guys, men, dads. You know what? Bad shit happens to good people. And I'm just trying to help you find strategies that are going to help you get yourself through it. So, yeah, would love to have you be part of our community. And have an awesome day, guys. Bye for now.